Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me, my books and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. I'm proud to have a brand new guest on. His name is Brian Chapman. He is the author of Life from My Side, Heart Relationships and Abuse. Now, his story is being a father with sole custody, and what do you do with the system that's supposed to protect your kids and fails in the worst possible way? Brian's story is one of a person dealing with the mother of his children and other women who actively harmed his children. Brian learned that constant vigilance and pursuing legal action to protect his children isn't enough to ensure their best interest. And he's here to share his story. And he's been an EMT, and he's going to reveal the appalling behavior of these women who put his children in harm's way. I welcome you, Brian, to the podcast. Writing a book is very difficult, reliving your experiences. What got you to the point to actually write the book?
Friends have always told me I should write a book just based on my background and working in 911 ambulances. And um, the focal point though really was for me was I wanted to get the story out about the life, um, the craziness with the broken system.
Mm.
Uh, Went through. You think you know somebody when you marry them, but
Mhm.
obviously that isn't always the case. And you think there's a system out there that would do what's in the best interest of the kids, and I found that to be not the case at all. Um, so I decided to write a book about it. I wasn't getting anywhere here. I was spending thousands of dollars that I didn't have. Found myself single, raising three kids of my own, and no assistance, no child support. And I thought if I got the story out, maybe it would fall in the hands of the right person, maybe a legislator or somebody that would help. I don't know, expose the system and help make some changes.
And you've probably found that wasn't the case either.
That's correct. Yeah, no, not at all. Um, there's so much to unload there, so that's why I had to write a book. Uh, I know you said it's hard to write the book, but for me, actually, it was really, how you say, um, what's the right words here?
Probably
It,
therapeutic.
yeah, exactly. Therapeutic. It was very
Mhm.
therapeutic to get it out in writing. Um, Still, when I think back, it's like, how can this be the case? And what is why is it this way? I mean, this is supposed to be their job. This is supposed to be what the system is, I mean, and when I talk about the system, I'm referring to the Department of Children's Services, the court system, the guardian ad litem, which is the person that's appointed by the
Mhm.
courts to, to try to figure out what's in the best interest of the kids. And that just hadn't been the case. Um, my problem in life is uh, I was very gullible and um, believed what I heard with my ears, even though the actions of those others could be, um, opposite of what they were saying.
I think a lot of parents go through that. We're all naive until we really get in there and figure out the corruption.
Right. Growing up as a kid, I'd always heard, well, all women have a maternal instinct, and I can assure you that is definitely not the case. Um, my children's mother, we were married for 12 years, and I it was she kept me so busy working two jobs just to try to keep up with the debt that
Mhm.
I missed a whole lot. I just wasn't home a whole lot, and I didn't understand. I didn't. I mean, you hear about these things, you watch the news, and I really didn't see what was going on, or maybe I was just in denial. Um, back at home, and I didn't know anything about. really mental illness or I remember trying to get her in counseling and um, even after um, during the divorce and stuff, I went and tried to get some counseling on my own as well, and I also took a divorce care class because the last thing I ever wanted was a divorce. I always said, whenever I get married, it'll be for life. Well, I mean that's great, but it takes two.
Hmm.
Uh, you have to both think that way, and just to give you a little idea of some of the stuff I went through. My ex had my children's mother had moved in her mother, and they had concocted this plan that they were going to um, kind of drive me out, and I would just kind of disappear and to give them a child support check, and uh, that wasn't happening. There was no way I was going to leave my children behind, and it's been 10 years now. Looking back, it's like I mean I'm so grateful that it turned out the way it did. I do have full physical custody. I still do. I'm still raising them on my own. Um, had that not happened, though, I have no doubt that my kids would be an absolute mess right now.
How soon did she want to move her mother in? Was that?
Um, this was almost 10 years ago. Um, I mean, it was years because I was literally going from one job to the next job to try to keep up with the debt she kept putting us in.
Hmm.
Uh, Thousands in credit cards. I think I refinanced the house 5 times in 10 years. There was this gross irresponsibilities. I didn't see it. And then when she did move her in, her mother, well, the apple didn't fall far from the tree, and that's when I could actually see because she had lived out of state prior to that. I could see there was something going on, and I just didn't understand it. And now looking back, I can see it was, mental problems, and um, uh, they had this. She had a dog, um, and it was showing aggression towards my kids. And of course, I'm telling their mom, "Hey, we got to get this dog out of this house." She was lying to me the whole time, saying, "Oh, well, she just doesn't have a place to go. She'll be out soon. She's saving money so she can get her own place." And that wasn't the case at all.
Mm-mm.
Um, and we went to counseling, and I pointed it out to the counselor. I said, "Hey, she's got this dog that is being aggressive towards the kids, and she refuses to get this dog out of the house." And they were tiny, I mean, they were, probably 6, 4, and maybe 2. And and he told her the same thing. Hey, you got to get the dog out of there, And
Hmm.
well, we can't get rid of the dog because the dog, she's had that dog for so many years, and I couldn't just, Anyway, long story short, I ended up mauling my son in his face.
Oh no.
He had 3 plastic surgeries. Um, And here's where I started to learn about this system. So I had to rush my son to a trauma center. Like I said, over the time he's had 3 plastic surgeries. He's still got permanent scarring, but I called the animal control, and she had already called ahead while I was in the hospital with my son. And in the county here that I live in, I was told that, hey, I really want to help you out, but I got a phone call from your mother-in-law yesterday, and now we're going to come out and we're going to look at the dog, and we're going to see if it's up to date on its shots. But unfortunately, now if it was a stray dog or it was a neighbor's dog, we would absolutely take the dog.
Hmm.
But since this dog is living with you and it's a family member's dog, we can't take the dog. What are you talking about? You can't. It just mauled one of my children, and I have 2 little girls in the house too.
Uh-huh.
And he says, I understand. He goes. Now we're going to come out, but unfortunately, we can't just take the dog. I said, I don't think you heard me correctly. Let me
Hmm.
let me repeat what has happened here. And so they did come out. I guess the dog was up to date on his shots, and yeah, that was my first. real experience with seeing how the system worked. Um, over time, I all kinds of things were just so crazy. I'd come home from working long shifts, and I'd find empty cereal boxes and stuff like that on the floor. And the kids were fending for themselves while her and her mother were sitting in recliners playing on iPads and drinking alcohol. Um, it's just a it's been real frustrating. Just when I think back, I guess it still obviously really bothers me. But um, and then when he called the Department of Children's Services, yeah, they come out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they'll talk with the kids, but it really didn't go anywhere. Great liars, great manipulators,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I filed for divorce, but it took forever. Took a very long time, and because it was a contested divorce, and obviously I was fighting for the kids, and it just every time I would ask for a copy of the report after because they had so long before they would close the case, and I'd read these reports, and I'm like, well, wait a second, this doesn't really say a whole lot about what the kids said. It's more of what I said, what she said, and then the famous word in almost every single report was unsubstantiated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was just really broken. I went and took a divorce care class. I went and took a another course called Boundaries, which I highly recommend both of them. They were really really good. Um, Unfortunately, I hadn't learned my lesson, and I met another woman after their mom after the divorce, and turns out she was the same type of person. Um, but it didn't last long, obviously. But still there was a lot there to unpack. Um, yeah, it's um, and then over the years, for quite a while, it's been like I said, it's been 10 years now. I really didn't have to. I mean, she just kind of disappeared and went her own way. She was going one guy to the next guy, and um, to this day, as far as I know, she's never had her own place to live. She's never paid a utility bill, never had one in her name. Just kind of uses people, and
Mm-hmm.
for a long time, just didn't have to worry about it. It was just me and the kids, and life was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And then periodically, she would, want to do a visit, take them on a weekend, and so she did get, visitation rights, and then there was a summer where she actually took them for the whole week. And they came home and shared very disturbing news. And of course, I'd call DCS again. And of course, she's in different counties. And one other thing I thought was kind of odd here in this state was none of them seemed to have been linked together. So if something happened in one county, you'd have to contact that office and drive there, or and vice versa. And they never did anything. So I took her to court. I mean, what else do I do, right? I didn't have the finances, but I'm still paying thousands and attorney's fees and court fees, and there was guardian ad litem fees. And again, I don't get child support or anything. It was just what I was making at work, and but we got by. God always provided and still does. But so she took them one week, and I thought, me and my attorney thought for sure, what they're going to have no choice but to give her supervised visits. And, based on everything, and then we were finally got a guardian ad litem. And so all this kind of fast forward to 2021. I think it was around Thanksgiving time. And it was the last time I took her to court because I can't keep taking her to court because, well, I want to keep a roof over our head.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we thought for sure they'd have no choice but to give her supervised visits. And I finally got the guardian ad litem report. My lawyer was telling me what it said, and I was like, "Oh, this is wonderful! Finally, somebody put it all in writing. They're going to have no choice."
Mm-hmm.
And it was a long report, probably 12, 13 pages. Everything the kids said, and what they've seen and what they went through, and then I got to her. We got to her recommendation for the case, and completely contradicted everything this lady wrote. I thought, what? I 100% thought, and so did my lawyer, that she had confused her recommendations with some other case. And so I called the guardian ad litem place and said, "Hey, I'd like to get a copy of the report." And, "Oh, well, you can't have a copy of the report." And I was, what are you talking about? Well, yeah, you can. Your lawyer can tell you what it says, but you can't have a copy. I said, "Well, I think you're confused." I said, I have full physical custody of the kids. I have for years.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "I paid you $3,000 for your services this time." I said, "Why wouldn't you want me to have a copy of the report?" And she laughed and she said, "Well, she says, you know how kids are. We wouldn't want them to ever get a hold of it and read it." I said, "Get a hold of it and read it?" I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "They've lived it, you know?"
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, and the judge had already said that he was going to go strictly with what the guardian ad litem report said. There was court. My oldest daughter testified against her. She was 14 at the time. She's my oldest. And um, uh, we filed motions because in the state it actually says when you're 14 years of age, you have a say.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so she wanted to go talk with the judge, and the judge had refused to speak with her. We couldn't figure this out. Why would the judge refuse to speak with her? And so we filed a couple motions, and he every time got denied. And he said, "Well, if she wants to testify against her mother, she can do it in open court." And I thought, how horrible! Why would you put a 14-year-old through that? And so I told her, "Honey, you don't worry about that. You don't have to do that." And, "Oh no, Dad, I do." And she did. And of course, her mother was on the stands calling her a liar, which was completely the
Oh.
opposite. But so everything was came out and was said, and the judge said he wanted a couple days to go over everything, and he'd get back with us on his decision. And we were trying to get her to have supervised visits because that's exactly what she needed. Let me retract a little bit. So for a number of years, she missed a great deal, which was, I mean, the least exposure, the better. And I mean, Christmas, holidays, birthdays. But she would talk to them on the phone, and it was kind of just disturbing to watch because obviously they're kids biologically. That's their mom. They wanted to see her, and they were pawning for her to come pick them up. And um, she would tell them that she would over and over and over, and even the day of. And then she always had an excuse. "Well, hey, I'm stuck in traffic. I got a flat tire. A unicorn hit my car." I mean, you name it. That was the scenarios that played out over and over, year after year. And they would be crying, and she would. It wasn't about them or their feelings. And let's face it, kids live on their feelings. They're kids,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like well, I'm sorry, and but it's more like she got enjoyment out of them pawning to see her than it was about her trying to be any kind of a mother, or it was about her. It wasn't about the kids. Is the bottom
Mm-hmm.
line.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward again to 2021. This was just the last time I took her to court because there was a lot to unpack there, just too much. But the judge wanted a couple days to go over things, and then finally a couple weeks went by, and again we were just asking for supervised visitation. And um, and my lawyer called me up and said, "You're not going to believe it."
Mm-hmm.
they She goes right back to regular overnight visits. Now he acknowledged in the paperwork her constant violations of the court order, because there was several guys, but there was one guy in particular that was very violent, had a history going back to the early '90s for beating and confinement of women.
Mm-hmm.
And yet this is the guy that she kept bringing them around. This guy at one point tried to run over my oldest daughter with his truck. There's a lot there, but
Mm-hmm.
um, so the judge had ruled that although she broke the aspects of the court order, which was not just this guy, but also her mother, and other people, her drunk boyfriend, and all these people. They weren't supposed to be around the kids, and you'd think there'd be some system in place that would help you protect your kids, but my lawyer caught her lying under oath. There was the breaking of the court order, and he just exonerated her of absolutely everything, and gave her full blown visitation again, as if nothing ever took place. And we
And
were just,
and nothing about the perjury, right?
oh, nothing. I mean, well, no,
Nothing.
it was in there. It's written in there,
Hmm.
that she did this, but she's just exonerated. No big deal. Um, and um, from there, um, there was just I started doing some research. I'm like, who is this judge? Was he not sitting in the same courtroom I was? Um, I mean, we were all there. I mean, so I looked him up and found out that the judge himself had been in big trouble. I had his license suspended by the Supreme Court
Hmm.
for embezzlement. And yet now here he was residing over my case and child, with kids.
Do you want to name him?
I'm sorry.
Do you want to name him?
Yeah, Judge Freeze.
What's his
Judge
first
Freeze.
name?
Honestly, I don't know well, I have it somewhere, but
Mhm.
Judge Freeze. Um, I don't know if he's still doing this. Was in November of 21. Um, and they have ruled that she could continue her overnights now now check this out, at a foreclosed property. So
Huh.
how do you do an overnight visit or a weekend visit at a foreclosed property at her um, at her transgender's friend's house? Well, she calls it a friend, but the kids have shared all kinds of stuff about that story too. I don't under, but anyway, I asked the question. I'm like, well, wait a second. How do you do an overnight at a foreclosed property? Does it have electricity, water? And I was not allowed to ask that question. I was not allowed to ask that question. I just had to accept it. She got her time back. Um, yeah, um, the woman after her, you know, I guess you can be real blind when you don't think that way.
Mhm.
Some people with mental problems. I didn't understand some like when I took the woman that I had met. I did marry her too because I was trying to do the right thing, and she acted very sweet, innocent, and kind of like their mom. But
Mm.
she flat out had a plan. I mean, at the end of that, she flat out told me I used you. She robbed me. She robbed my kids. Um, she I would get her to go to counseling too, and she would try to convince you know that where was I going with that? I would get a phone call from the counselor, and the next day or whatever, and they'd say, Brian, she was gaslighting you. And
Mm.
I'm like, what? I didn't know what gaslighting meant, and I know that's naive, but I had to learn all these
Right.
terminologies.
Well, a lot of us didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So um, I started doing some reading. Counselors gave me some books, or told me some books to get, and I learned about narcissism.
Mm.
And I had a really hard time trying to understand how, and you can't understand it. You just can't. I mean, if you don't think that way,
Hmm.
according to the books I read, they say it derives from perhaps some family background of it, but more from childhood trauma. But I don't know. I mean, but it's definitely some serious issues with the heart.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, it's very disturbing. I read some excellent books on it, how these people think and how they deliberately and maliciously, just try to destroy people,
Mhm.
and they get enjoyment from it.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
why would you do that to somebody? Is beyond is you just can't comprehend it. I still can't comprehend it. I don't understand it. I read a couple great books. I don't know if I can call them off on here. Or,
Sure.
one was a biblical perspective on narcissism, and the other was Unholy Charade. And I'd read those books, and some of the stuff I would say to some people, family and stuff, I would make a quote out of there, and I'm like, this is crazy. This is exactly what I said to describe this, and bam, there it was in the book.
Yeah. Scary, right?
Yeah, it was quite an eye opener, and I hate to say it, but I was relieved to realize I wasn't the only one going through this.
Hmm.
I didn't understand personality disorders and all that kind of stuff. Nor did I want to. I didn't
Yeah.
really want to sign up for this. I didn't realize I did.
Yeah.
But
Same. God.
but yeah, it's been a crazy ride for sure.
So with the second woman, how long did that relationship last?
2 years. That was all about 2 years.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank God for that.
yeah, yeah. It was. Yeah,
What were the red flags when you met the first one in comparison with the second one? Did you see red flags, things that caused doubt in your mind? Like, is this
not
real?
not initially. No. And that's the crazy thing. I guess looking back, part of it was I think for me was I was kind of I had this thought, like, I mean, I felt like, well, me and the kids have been through so many years of nonsense and garbage that, the Lord is blessing us now. This lady came across as, wonderful. And I mean, just acted so sweet and innocent. And
Mm,
my family's in tune to a lot more than I am. And even they met her and thought, hey, yeah, she's great, but actually, it was my mom that caught on pretty quick, but not till it was too late, and I'd already married her.
mm,
Um, but yeah, there was definitely signs there, and um, there were red flags, but I wasn't seeing them. I mean, back then, and I was again a single dad raising three kids, and I'm thinking I got to have somebody to help me, get my kids on the bus and off the bus, and this lady's great. I think I was wanting it more than I was wanting, a normal relationship more than I was realizing, what was really going on. I don't know if that made sense.
mhm.
Um, I don't have any family in the state. It was just me and my kids, and it was their mom. And I still don't have any family in the state
Mhm.
for uh for a while though. My mom had moved in with me because her husband had passed away, and that was wonderful. So my mom kind of became more than a grandma. She was more like their mom.
Mhm.
She just actually passed away
Mhm.
uh, in June, very unexpectedly. Um, she went in for what they said was going to be a routine procedure, but it turned out to be anything but. But
Mhm.
um, so she was here for a lot of it. She witnessed a lot of it. Um, we were always close, and she was able to, yeah. So she's been great, but that was great. But and my kids are doing great now. Um, my oldest is getting ready to graduate high school. She's going to be off to college as long as she gets the scholarships.
Right, right.
Hoping she doesn't get a lot of student loan debt.
Hmm.
And then I have the younger two still here, and we do great. Um,
Do they
yeah,
do they bring up the past? Do
yeah. Not as much as they used to.
hmm.
It is brought up every once in a while. Something will trigger, a memory or something, and
Hmm.
they'll talk about it, and we'll talk about it, and then it's over.
Hmm.
Um, I've raised them in the church, and so they have a foundation. They know the Lord. And, um, you know, yeah, it sucks. I really never wanted that for my kids, and but like I said, I'm very grateful that I got custody, and I've been able to raise them and be with them every day.
Well,
It's 10 years now, and they're doing good. They still have their moments, but
Who was the judge that granted you custody?
Um, Honestly, I don't remember. I mean, it's been 10 years.
It was probably such a nightmare, you just want to forget it.
Yeah, I mean, we went through. She didn't fight real hard on that. I mean, once she realized, because I had taken, when I was going through it, I mean, it was living hell, and she was trying all kinds of things to try to, say I was the problem, and
Hmm.
I mean, she tried all kinds of nasty stuff. She was calling DCS on me, and
Hmm.
uh, well, there's a lot to unpack there, but it's in the book.
Right, right.
um, but yeah, for all that period, um, it was 2 years. But I was taking notes literally every day. I was taking
Hmm.
notes and pictures, and pictures don't lie. And once she realized when we were going to court, my lawyer shared with her lawyer, I think, that hey, just so you know, we have all this. And if she tries to fight too hard for the kids, we're going to be bringing this up.
Hmm.
And so once she discovered that, all she wanted to talk about from that point forward was money.
Hmm.
She wanted a big fat check and to leave. So actually, she had left before that. She had, just kind of, yeah, her and her mother's drunk boyfriend had moved out. Um, I mean, when I say they tried to get me to run out of here, I mean, yeah, but I wasn't leaving my kids behind, no way. Um,
Did she come after you for alimony or anything like that?
in this particular state, there is no alimony.
Oh, what state is that?
Indiana.
India. Okay.
Yeah, there's no alimony in Indiana. I did not get child support. It was set up to where, and so I couldn't go any longer because she had caused so much debt turmoil that
Hmm.
if if I would have let another month go by, um, I would not have had my credit to refinance the house and keep the kids. I wanted to have the house still, so the kids, weren't completely uprooted from their lives.
Hmm.
And so what had happened was I've always had excellent credit. I mean, never
Hmm.
always. And when she moved her mother in, her and her mother had identity thefted me, and they were opening up credit cards, and that was a whole other thing. There's a whole other
Hmm.
aspect here to this. Um, they identity thefted me. I called these credit cards, and they literally told me that they could track. They knew the devices that the credit cards were used on and stuff. And I said, well, I could tell you exactly who it is. It's my soon-to-be ex-wife and her mother. And I went to the police department, and I filed a complaint or tried to. And I went there 3 times, and they didn't. They were of no help. They literally told me, "Well, this is part of a divorce case, and you need to just bring this up in court." And I was, well, wait a second. I thought the last I checked, identity theft was a crime.
Hmm.
Apparently not, and I wasn't married to her mother. I mean,
Right. Right.
so it never went anywhere. So long story short, though, um, if I didn't uh, agree to the no child support right off the bat and to wipe away the debt they incurred on me from the identity theft and all the other nonsense she's charged up for years. I wouldn't have had the credit to refinance the house and stay in the home. So I had agreed to go ahead um, I agreed to go ahead and do the no child support. But after 1 year, when she got a job, which she didn't, but when she got a job and she made over 25,000, she was supposed to start paying child support. Well, that never happened. I mean, the several times that we've been to court, she always claimed that she didn't make anything and or very little or just shy of the $25,000 mark. And then fast forward, the last time I took her to court, um, the judge did actually finally order her to pay a small minute, I mean, drop in the bucket $2,000 towards my attorney's fees, and he gave her a year to pay it. She didn't pay a nickel, and and then instead of paying me, anything. She filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy. What she doesn't realize is, I'm so she had to show all her records, and apparently at that time she did have a job where she made over 50,000, and she just again lied to the courts, producing documentation that was a lot less because we were just in court. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But my lawyers, just told me, you don't have it, quit borrowing it. There's no sense of going back to court anymore because they're not going to do anything.
Mm.
There is an agenda. I really wish I understood what it was. The only thing I can come up with and why this system is so failed and broken is I really believe that they want you to continue to come back and give them a paycheck year after year. And if they
Right.
get a client, if they build up a big enough clientele, then I guess they're getting paid pretty good. I don't have any other explanation for all
Well,
this.
but
Uh,
then the system isn't broken because it's working like a fine oiled
oh,
machinery. So
yeah,
that's why they just keep everybody coming back and they know exactly what they're doing. I know people, want to say, CPS is a broken system and the family court is a broken system, but they've got it finely tuned, trust me.
I think you're right. I think you're exactly right.
Unfortunately. I mean, I like to be wrong. I'll be honest with you. I would love to be wrong about a lot of things. But this is what they're doing to parents. You, and you're very fortunate you got full custody from these
Right,
personality disorders.
right.
Ugh.
Yeah. I will say, so for the last, gosh, it's probably coming up on a year now. Um, she has started to come around a lot more, and my family and friends think that she must have been spoken to, or she's realizing maybe that now that she's in her late 40s and she's living with some guy that beats her, and
Mhm.
you basically just, I mean, who would want a life like that? But anyway, um, their thoughts are that um, she's trying to get back in their lives now that they're older because now they're teens.
Mhm.
um, so she could eventually mooch off of them and live off of them once they're out and about, out of the house and done with college. And I mean, they know better. I never bashed her. I always wanted them, and I knew it would be very important for them to figure out, who she was on their own, and they did. I mean, kids are smart.
Mhm.
Um, I remember when my oldest came home one day. Well, they all came home, but she asked me, Dad, can I talk to you? And I said, of course. And she asked me the question right up right. I mean, does mom have mental problems? And I just asked her, I said, well, what do you think, honey? And she said, yeah, uh,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, so for the last year or so, she has been coming by and getting them every other weekend. Um, you know, they want to try to figure out who she really is. They know she's got problems, but they do want to spend time. Now she gets. They say that um, she gets money from this one guy, and I think that's also another motivator. Is she's buying them all this stuff. Uh,
Mhm.
Nothing they need, because anything that they would need is my responsibility.
Mhm. Mhm. Right, right.
She won't share anything that Um, but yeah, she uses this one guy. And this is my kids telling me this. I'm not just saying this. Um, because I'm not around her. I don't talk to her other than what I absolutely have to. And I will say this: finally, the court did do something, and that was because I was taking notes and keeping track of every single conversation and sending it to a designated email. And when it finally came to going to court, I had all these years worth of stuff, and the courts wouldn't even look at it. So one thing we did get in place was she was ordered to, reply to me. All communication was now going to be done through a court-ordered app, and that has been wonderful. Actually, it was used against her quite a bit when we went to court last time. But
What
uh,
app was that?
app close,
App close.
yeah, yeah, it's been really good. Where was I going with that? Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh, no,
interrupt.
no, no, you're fine.
So
So,
you're
oh yeah, for the last year or so, I guess the kids. She's told the kids, "Hey, I'm using this guy for his money," and and he's trying to teach my girls, this is what you need to do. It's very disturbing. Of course, they know better, but they want to see her now, and I friends and family, and my thoughts as well are probably because, like I said, she's getting older and realizing she has nothing and nobody, and other than this guy that beats her and whoever else she's running around with, and yeah, so that's kind of where we're at today. Like I said, my kids are doing good. Um, yeah, I hope one day to retire, but I don't ever see it.
Oh, I hope you hit the lottery after what you've been through. Do you talk to your kids about, the books that you have read? Um,
They saw me writing it. Oh, I'm sorry. You asked me about books that I've read.
well, all three. How about that? They saw you writing your book, and then
Yeah,
they
they
saw
saw me
you
writing my
reading
book, and I would always,
Unholy Charade
yeah.
and Biblical Perspective on Narcissism. Do you ever talk to them about personality disorders and what they should watch out for and the red flags?
My son's still kind of young. I mean, he's soon to be 13, but my daughters, my one daughter, I will say she's very she's immature for her age, and I think attribute a lot of that probably to all the trauma that we've been through. Um, but she likes to read, but no, not so much, not so much. Now my oldest daughter, I mean, they now as far as my book goes, I mean, because I do a lot of reading, but I usually don't. Uh, yeah, they just I don't think they really even pay attention to what I'm reading, other than I mean, we read together, but we're reading, the Word or
Mhm.
the Bible or discussing theology, but and we talk about that obviously together. But as far as personality disorders and those books, they don't really talk about it or ask me about it. But my book, they've noticed me because it took me a long time to write it. I mean, in between working and raising them, I think it was about 2 years to write the book. Um, you'd think I'd have a lot more written by then, but
Oh, well, when you have a lot going on, it
yeah,
is difficult. It's difficult. People don't realize it's very difficult to even write a book. People ask me, where do I start? It's like I always start at the beginning, just in chronological order.
right. I was determined. I was like, I can't just. I was just. I had to get my story out. I felt like
Mhm.
I really needed to. Hopefully, I'm really hoping and praying that it gets in the right hands of the right people and they can actually really make some changes because
Hmm.
something needs to be done. I mean, uh,
Right. Like Judge Freeze probably
yeah,
needs a psychological evaluation.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was just flabbergasted, and you know, I just, and I mean, it was a friend of mine that told me about your book, and I was like, oh, cool. Somebody else wrote a book and fighting for the same thing.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's a shame, there's so many of us out there, but I don't know how many people have actually written books, but the system, I mean, it's just fractured on, from what I understand, all over the place.
Hmm. Oh, and it's global. We can't just stop at the United States. It's global. It's a mess.
Could you imagine having this discussion, what, 20, 30 years ago? I mean,
Hmm.
um, crazy.
Well, I'm sure you know about the Title IV B, D, and E incentives, and every dollar paid in child support is matched with our Social Security monies and where that goes.
I'm not familiar.
Oh, okay. So a lot of people, even lawyers, don't know this because they're not taught this in law school. Um, what happens is this, so every dollar paid on the child support, it's matched with Social Security money. So you're wondering, where does that money go? Okay, this is a $1 billion a year industry on each state. So imagine all the people. I'm in Pennsylvania, a horrible, nasty state. Uh, I hate to say that, but So you've got all these people paying child support and these funds are being matched. So it's $1 billion a year business. So then I read up on where do these monies go? Well, it goes towards government grants. So if your kid wants to go to college, like when I went into nursing, I got 6 grants. Gee, what paid for those grants? The Title IV defunding. Now that I learned that, I'm sick to my stomach. But I was at poverty level trying to be a nurse. Anyway, it also goes towards fixing the roads, and it also goes back into the judge's retirement pension funds.
Ah,
Yeah. Yeah, see, the taxpayers don't know this stuff.
yeah, there's a lot we don't know, I'm sure.
Yeah, a lot we don't want to know, but we have to know because this is how we're going to have to change the system. You cannot reform family court. You cannot reform corruption. The very fact that Judge Freeze did what he did, and also his license was suspended for embezzlement.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then
I
he's still
mean,
back on the bench, right? You know,
I mean, yeah, I don't get it. How does that even happen? I mean, if you or I were doing our jobs and something happened that we did wrong,
oh,
I don't think we'd get to go back. I,
no, not at all. Not at all. That's just the thing. These judges, they're all connected. And everyone needs to know, and you probably know this too, they're all playing in the same sandbox with the attorneys, the opposing attorneys. And if you really want to win your case, judge shop. You want to find a judge and an attorney that have worked together in the DA's department for years. Then you pick those two, you're going to win your case. Doesn't matter how corrupt they are or corrupt you are. And that's what parents have to be aware of. I learned that in my own case. My attorney said, I'm going to let you know right now. That judge and that opposing attorney, they're BFFs. They worked in the DA's department for 4 years before he became a judge. And judges should also be given lie detector tests based on how much money was given to their judge campaigns or their kids' judge campaigns. Because they follow in mommy or daddy's footsteps.
like a family business, huh?
It is, well, there you go. And some people refer to them as the mafia, but I don't because I'm half Italian. And the mafia truly cares about family. So I tend to call them the cartel.
Don't disrespect the family, huh?
Yeah, don't, because family, my mother always said she was Italian, full-blooded. She said blood is thicker than water. Well, I eventually learned it wasn't. But anyway, there it is. It's all in who you know, the connections. I tell parents, look, if you've got a judge that's really not doing the right thing, go on LinkedIn, see who they're connected to, see the parties that they go to. Do you believe these judges actually post parties that they go to at another judge's house? Attorneys post parties that they went to at another judge's residence.
Wow.
So this system is working perfectly the way they want it to work. However, a lot of us would like to see it abolished and put civil court where a parent can have a jury in its place. Somehow the good fit parent has to be protected, and if it has to go before a jury, I'm sure that would cost money too, but we've got to do something with these characters. I could go on. I don't know what to, I'm sorry you went through all of this, but I'm glad you wrote your book. And, I've always tried to talk to my kids about personality disorders and even perfect strangers about personality disorders. If you can save one person,
All right. And they can act completely normal,
right?
just now you're having a conversation but boy, they are planning. Um, they know how to get what they want, and you know, yeah, it's it's disturbing. And like I said, I have found that they are just master liars and incredible manipulators. It's now I can see it. You asked me early on about red flags and stuff like that, and no, I was blind to them. I just, kind of generally thought overall that most people were good in nature, and I wasn't completely naive. I mean, I've worked in a 911 ambulance for decades, but
Hmm.
um, so I saw, I mean, I'm not naive. It's an evil world,
Hmm.
but I guess you just don't really think you're going to go through that or experience that or
Hmm.
um, encounter that in your life. Now though, I mean, um, I've tried to date, every once in a while, and I really just don't have time. But raising three kids and working, but I waited a long time. There was some years there I was just absolutely not. I just need to focus on the kids, and um, but in everybody wants to find that right person and stuff like that. And now I'm just very extremely cautious, and now
Hmm.
I can see a red flag, like some of the dates I went on, and
Hmm.
asking questions and stuff is like, bam. I mean, I just see it. I don't know how to explain it, I
Well,
guess.
hey, can you give me an example of how did you see it qu that quick?
Um, as far as on a date,
Right.
um, well, I want to know the history. Um, I don't know. Is this maybe even some of the same things they might have said, and like my children's mother or the woman after her. Um, I don't know. It's like when I say red flags, I guess I'm meaning um, what's the word I'm looking for? Not judge a character, but I mean, it wasn't a good judge of character, but what's the word I'm looking for there? Um, I wasn't in tune, but now it's just,
You're hyper vigilant now.
yeah, I guess that's probably it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad to be that way. I was raised by two people that were not personality disorders. So therefore, I wasn't a personality disorder, but you don't know what you're marrying into. And I was talking to this kid at Sam's Club before it opened, and there were two guys standing there. So we're just waiting 10 minutes for the store to open. So I just said, "Hey, either of you guys been through family court?" And the older fellow responded, "Yeah, I lost $58,000, but things are fine because now she remarried and she leaves me alone." I said, "Well, that's good." But his kids were also close to aging out, which was good as well. And then the younger fellow probably had to be 25, 26. And he said, "Well, I'm engaged." I said, "Well, there are personality disorders out there." He said, "Well, I'm going to trust the process." And I'm like, "Oh no." I said, "Do you know what a personality disorder is?" He didn't know. And so I had to break it down into a scenario. And I said, "What happens if you're happily married for 6 years? Let's just say that happens.
Right.
And you've got two kids, but one of you is hurt very badly in a car accident. And now someone has a head injury. Well, we'll just say, what if it's her? And when she heals up and comes home and she decides, I don't want to live with him anymore. I'm taking the kids and I'm going to go back and live with my parents and not let you see the kids. What happens then? Or what happens if your marriage does break down and she decides or to leave, to end it and go elsewhere with the kids? You have to have some type of prenup in place. Not that that's going to save you, but at least it's written in and documented that you will share the kids because kids need to see both parents, provided there's no abuse history, right? Things like
Right.
that. So, he the look on his face, this is sad. I'm a horrible person, I admit it. But he went from, like looking at me like to that type of look. And he said, I'm going to go talk to a lawyer. I said, right, right, protect yourself. And a prenup is also to protect the other person. I'm protecting you, I'm protecting me. Let's protect the relationship and the future of the children. That needs to be added in. as far as divorce, just separate everything down the middle, or keep your checking account separate. I could go on. I don't want to keep you all morning, but that's what I try to, warn young people on.
I think everybody just goes into it too with the attitude of, well, that's not going to happen to me. You know,
Right. It's sad. It's sad because people want to think it's going to be fair in a courtroom. It's going to be fair in a courthouse.
that's totally what I thought. I thought for sure. I mean,
Hmm.
especially just, on the children's testimony alone, I mean, you would think, but
Right. Right. And everyone says, oh, when these kids are 14, the judge is going to listen to them.
yeah,
Yeah. That's like, oh, no, no. I mean, not even my son told the judge he wanted to go back to 50-50, which we were for 10 years. So it's not anything drastic. The judge continued on a false narrative. They've got their own minds made up and they're being bought off or it's rigged and they're playing in the same sandbox. So there's a lot to consider. Whoever you marry, it is till death do us part.
yeah.
So I try to warn as many young people as I can.
I do long for the day to where, when they were all old enough and I don't have to have any communication with her.
Right. Right. But then someone said to me, well, they're going to have kids and, the baby's born at the hospital.
Yeah,
You're going to go. Yeah. See what I'm saying? It's like, is it ever going to be over? And then, you know, is she going to babysit those kids?
oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay. See what I mean? This is what I mean. It just keeps going. And that's why I always encourage people talk about the personality disorders. I mean, I wish someone would have done that with me. When I was younger, my mom read me the book. It was a workbook called I'm Okay, You're Okay. I don't know if anyone remembers that from the 70s, but I think that was the start of teaching people about personality disorders, but it didn't go far or deep enough.
Right.
So that's why I'm so glad you came onto this podcast. And is there anything else you'd like to add?
Um, no, I guess just to kind of piggyback what you were just saying there, like me, I had no idea what narcissism was, I mean, it had to literally be broken down for me and explained to me. You don't really know about mental disorders, until you're exposed from it. It's
Mhm.
just sad. I do wish, like you said, looking back, I wish somebody would have said, hey, but I don't know. They say there's uh, the books say there's just a tremendous amount of people that are narcissists that are never ever even diagnosed.
Mhm. Mhm.
Issues, who knows? I mean, I think a lot of it does have to do with the heart.
Mhm.
I'm sure there's an aspect of the mind as well, but I think like the books say, it's kind of deliberate and malicious. You learn about other things too when you start studying that stuff, like bipolar. They say that's actually tracked to a chemical imbalance. So
And that's inherited.
yeah, that's inherited. Um, yeah, you just don't know. And they can certainly act. They have the ability, and believe me, the know-how of how to get what they want and how to deceive. Um, they're great at it. So just yeah, use caution. I mean,
Oh, caution, now that you say that, I did tell that kid at Sam's Club, I said, did you do background checks on her and her family? Because if you find out she's connected, or the father or the mother's connected to a judge or a police department or even a fire department, run. Sad but true. Sad but true. But hey, tell us, where can we find your book?
it's on Amazon, and it's Life from My Side.
and it's heart relationships and abuse. I think everyone should read this book, men and women. Read this book. Even if you're 22 years old, look at this book because it serves as a warning, like my book. It serves as a warning. We're here to share our experiences with the public. So I'm so glad, Brian Chapman, that you joined me here this morning. And how can people reach you if they have any questions?
My email's in the book, and yeah,
Okay. Oh, great. Okay, well, hey, don't jump off, all right?
okay.
Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Maryann Petri, and you can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe. Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms even I don't know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. Thank you, and thank you, Brian Chapman, for all this good information. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.